Welcome back, everybody. It has been a minute. Been an absolute minute. I'm Carter Hammond. This is Jonah Wheeler. And we're doing Locally Sourced. We're back. It's been...
2021. Here we are.
Dude, it's, we're going to get it kicked off. This is going to suck, though. Like, we'll all be honest about it. Like, it's not like just because Trump isn't our president anymore doesn't mean that like all of the crazy assholes in this country just went away. Like, right. Everything's still going on. So we'll be real about it. So like, you know, like in a lot of ways, our episode today, like this is going to be short. We're just sort of like checking back in because we're going to talk about like what we're planning on doing with Locally Sourced going into 2021 and like just ongoing, like what this channel's even, what the purpose of this is. So like, you know, the situation is essentially like, okay, great. We got Biden in. He's signed some executive orders right off the bat that are helpful, but not like, progressively speaking, they're not going to do too much. It will be cool if we can get more stimulus money. That might be nice. I would imagine that's going to happen. We'll see about his drop in the bucket ass $10,000 break on student loans. I know that doesn't make a huge difference for me personally. So that sucks. But, and you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll like see some sort of expansion on the direct payments, you know, maybe even, I don't know, Jonah, I don't know if you've been eligible for them. Yeah. No. Yeah, maybe. So maybe Jonah will even actually be eligible. That might help. I'm sure that extra stimulus would help you and your family a little bit. I don't know. We're all kind of dealing with it.
Right. It's exactly what we expected him to do for May, right? Like sort of come into the office, sign a couple of things that seem progressive, and that's it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's all the progressive stuff we see from him coming out of his administration. He just starts off, he has to placate to the Twitter progressives or whatever, and then from then on we'll see old Joe Biden come back. Right.
Yeah, you know, like we might be able to get a little bit more distance with like Jamal Bowen and Cori Bush, right. And like we're adding more progressive voices into the mix down in DC, but again, it's like, which helps, we are kind of still looking at that same, like, all right, we're just entering back into Obama territory, right. Which is like, you know, it's like, okay, great. And my biggest concern, as the title of this, our episode today would suggest, is that, you know, all the liberals are just going to go back to brunch. Like this is that Hillary crap that we were all sweating. And like, you know, this is the second day in. And like I've already encountered any number of people. Oh, I'm just so relieved. It's like, you know, okay, cool. I'm glad everybody take a breather. It's, you know, yes, Trump isn't our president anymore. It's nice. That's a positive step. But this isn't going to be some sort of great sea change, and the pressure has to absolutely stay up, like 100% on a national level. So
if anything, it should be more. I mean, we have someone who's malleable and someone who we could push in theory. So really, there should be a lot more public pressure around someone like Joe Biden to get things done, because he'll waffle to public pressure. If there's people in the streets demanding $2,000, Joe Biden will waffle to that public pressure. And I see it as like, wow, now Joe Biden's president, we have an even bigger opportunity to organize around progressive goals and such, even though Joe Biden historically has not supported those in his career. He has also been pretty clearly one who changes with the wind. So if we can, here on the show or progressives nationally, change the wind in any way and make it so Biden has to be progressive. That's what we have to do in the next 2 years. We can't even, right. You know, it has to happen before the midterms, or else we could see like the backlash that everyone's talking about.
Yeah, you know, and I think, you know, it's like I heard separately. I think it was Majority Report. They were talking about it, where it was like, you know, like, look, if Trump can follow Obama, right, like who the hell could follow Biden? So let's just keep that in mind. And then the other side of it too is that like I especially worry about like the liberals going back to sleep when we talk about like the state level here in New Hampshire. Main reason being Republicans control all three branches of government here. So like for anybody to get lackadaisical just because Biden got elected is just that's absolutely ridiculous. And I definitely think like,
well, I mean, like, why are people getting lax? Why are people going to brunch? I mean, the thing, like, it's because Joe Biden and the people who strategize around Joe Biden are successfully painting him as a person who will get all these things done. So how do we, as people who know that Joe Biden is not going to get those things done, how do we make sure he does, or at least bring people? How do we pull back the veil, I guess, to the reality of these people? Like, how do we show the American public who Joe Biden really is, and break that spell that he has cast over everyone, where it's like, oh, but it's just Joe Biden. He'll get climate action done, so we don't really have to worry about it. Or it's Joe Biden. I know he's working for us in the White House. We have a Democrat in the White House, so we don't have to worry about this because we know that he's going to get it done. So like, how can we make sure that people understand that just because they have a D next to their name, it doesn't mean that they're fighting for working people. And if we can somehow make that connection, then I think that all this liberal going back to sleep problem will go away. If there's an unpopular liberal president, people won't be going to sleep. It's just about how do we push them into that unpopularity? Not necessarily like that,
right? Well, and I
mean.
think like this is something that came up like I sort of tried to like allude to this, that like in a lot of ways the biggest group that stands as an obstacle right now to the mission TM is probably like the praxis is right. Essentially an older, affluent, mostly white constituency, and that is exactly the constituency that we have in New Hampshire. That's like the main group of people, mostly aged out, mostly 50, 65, that range and older, and not particularly ethnically diverse. So here in New Hampshire, that's exactly the group of people that we have to be concerned with. I personally have experienced a lot of like, even some of the most progressive people that I speak to are still like very, very, very comfortable with neoliberal policy. And like, sometimes I think that's just not being aware that it's neoliberal policy, feeling like incrementalism is an effective, or just like it's a thing that needs to just be accepted and incorporated.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to see incrementalism as something that works when it's the society around you seemingly works, right? Like if you're living your life and it seems to work, and you're going to your job and you get to go to the gas station and the gas is pumping and the restaurants are working and people are out and about. I mean, the society seems to be working. So, I mean, if you're living under 8 years of Obama and you know that Bill Clinton was right before Bush, you're like, oh, well, maybe neoliberal policies weren't that bad, and then things are just so bad because George Bush was president for 8 years, or H.W. Bush before him, or Ronald Reagan before him. I mean, this cycle that keeps going on. For me, it's really just about how do we make sure that people know what people are going through in this country. I feel like there's a real disconnect with the reality of working people in this country. And if those stories were blasted out on a nationwide scale and people understood what people were going through at this moment and the suffering that they were going through, I think that we would break a lot of this, like liberals going back to sleep and the inability to kind of corral the populist base, the left and the right libertarian base together to bring change in the state and nationwide. I mean, we've talked about it before. The only way that we're going to do that here is by coalescing the libertarian right and us in this state. If we can find some way to bring that populist mindset together, then we could really, really bring some real change to this. And I think that the way to do that is to be honest about the situation that so many are facing, because they see when they see Joe Biden paint a picture of some happy world where it's like, oh, now that I'm president, we've done this, this, and this, and that. And they're like, well, now you're lying to me, because I still sit here in abject poverty, and after voting for you, and now what? You're painting this. Things haven't gotten better, Joe. And you're saying it's haven't gotten better, and
Right.
then we get the worst Trump. And I don't know where I was really going with that, but
No, I mean, but we're in a sticky situation right now, and I think the main, for me, I think about when we're really talking most of the time, especially on this channel, about like how can we actually get like a constituency to understand the problem, right? Like, how can we get people who like maybe just don't think about this kind of thing or don't wrap their head all the way around it, would inherently kind of like their morality would drive them in this direction, as long as it's not being co-opted by some sort of external force, right? Like, in my experience, a lot of people, even people that identify conservatively, will consistently advocate for community-based solutions to problems, or like, like they look at it as a form of individualism, but really it's a form of like community collaboration. And I think that's being able to point at that and break that down is really important. So, I mean, like, for me, what I think is really big is getting that older affluent constituency to actually understand and empathize with a lower earning younger constituency, right? Like people, like, how do we get them to actually connect with us? And so I think part of that is, whether it's somebody like me at, in my 30s, if it's somebody in their 20s, somebody just coming out of high school, like, there's a whole swath of folks that really, and even people into their 40s are struggling with this too. And it's like, we gotta find a way to sort of break down that barrier of understanding for an affluent person who, like, even during all 4 years of Trump, the most painful thing that they had to deal with was just reading a headline. And the key thing to remember for those people, right? Like, the net effect of 4 years of Trump was literally like being in an abusive relationship. Like, that's like, there's no difference between that. Like, we literally were gaslighted consistently week after week for 4 years, right? The problem with experiencing that, like psychologically, is that it leaves us really open to a equally traumatic rebound. You know what I mean? Like, if we're not careful about the way that we think about being critical of our own role in our political relationship to our broader country, and that if we just let Joe Biden take advantage of the same problems that have historically been there, if we just bounce back into sort of like the Obama neoliberal frame, and then everything that, as we've talked about, that brought us Trump will just reset, and we're there. We're already fighting that here in the state with the fact that the Republicans now have like full control over everything. And, and
we're going to have a fight for the party with the fact that Ray Buckley is running for re-election to the chair. I mean, something that could happen right here on the state is if we lose an election by almost 30 points in a gubernatorial seat, if we lose majorities in both the state Senate and the state House, I think it just makes political sense to rethink who's in leadership for the party. I mean, what is someone like Ray Buckley running on in terms of a record of success running elections when Chris Sununu has been our governor for 3 terms now?
Right.
Like these if we're gonna actually, if we want to actually win, we have to change leadership and show the people that we're willing to change leadership when we lose, and rethink our ideas and readjust to it, just as the Republican Party has and does for for years, 40 plus years. I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, and it's like, we gotta understand our problem. I think that's part of it.
right.
Like here we have this wonderful little thing that was shared by the NH Poll 603 account. When someone, we're talking about how the Republicans are absolutely going to gerrymander New Hampshire, and the example here, which is this piece of legislation, Senate Bill 43, having to do with the allocation of electoral college votes. Essentially, they're saying they want to add a line, or add two lines. One saying the party shall nominate 2 at-large presidential electors and 1 presidential elector for each congressional district. They also want to add each at-large presidential elector shall cast his or her ballot for the first presidential and vice presidential candidates who receive the highest number of votes in the state. Each congressional district presidential elector shall cast his or her ballot for the presidential and vice presidential candidates who receive the highest number of votes in his or her congressional district. So the whole point here is that once they do a redistricting, they can essentially force someone like a representative from a district to vote in a way that's not their own political party. So it takes away the prerogative of the elector. Now, obviously, I think there's I don't necessarily think inherently that there's a problem with that law. I would support this if there was an independent redistricting commission, but there's not. The whole reason they wouldn't ever write this, ever, if they didn't know that they could completely control the redistricting and get an even stronger advantage over the Democrats statewide than they've already had for the past 10 years. So it's like, this is messed up, and we as the left have to remember that even with a majority we still lose. And when I say majority, I mean the majority of votes. Now we're already up against a serious issue of ticket splitting, as we saw during the actual election that we just went through, the amount of people that voted for Biden but then voted for Sununu, which is absolutely preposterous when you consider the fact that Sununu literally just he had he just was on an interview. I can't remember what station it was. I saw it earlier today. He was talking about how he's not going to take any federal money
I saw
fix
that.
it.
It's
It's stupid. Just
I don't want to take a single penny
yeah, not going
of
to take a
federal
single.
cash.
Yeah, just I want to reach through the screen and slap the dude.
Yeah.
So, here's the thing. If you voted for Biden and voted for Sununu, you just shot the whole state in the foot with that one. So, I have zero sympathy for anyone who did that ticket splitting. But the point is, we as the left need to hypothesize how to deal with this. So, what I propose, we're about to hop off the stream because like I said, we're only doing a short one today. But
we'll be back.
We will be back. Back next week for sure. And I think something that I want to do here, and I think we talk about this more too, is to really get into organizations, people that are maybe outside of a political frame, that are just doing the positive work in communities, like nonprofits, anybody that's sort of just trying to make things happen. Things like making sure people stay fed, or get economic assistance during something to help people stay afloat. This is the stuff I want to talk to folks about, because when we understand that these are people that are just coming in to help, we know that this is in a lot of ways nonpartisan. And I'm personally getting super frustrated with the left right now anyways, just in the amount of if we look at the Medicare for all fight, dude, I have just lost so much faith in so much of the left right now in terms of just their ability to not be selfish assholes and consider everything through an identity politics frame, when we're this is a really tough spot. And even people that I agree with, I'm getting super frustrated at how much they just feed into the problem. And I'm just, I worry that turns a lot of people off from the left to a point where they start to agree with the right more. That's I'm seriously concerned about that, where people on the left who are just feeling like, I have more arguments with people that I'm supposed to agree with than people that are, politically my opposition, and I've definitely heard that from people on the left, where it's like, I actually have an easier time talking to conservatives now than I do talking to people that are on my team. And so that is a problem that I really want to try and like break down a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just generally I see it as like we've kind of propped up egoist voices to be our leftist channels. We got someone like Jimmy Dore or Cenk Uygur or something like that. These
right.
brash, loud voices who, they're right. Like, it's pretty easy to be right on policy. It takes just a couple of like you could read some theory and be able to articulate leftist policy in a way that makes you seem pretty intelligent on it. Does that mean you're fighting for it in the right way? No. Does that mean you deserve 1.1 million followers or something like that? No. Like the cults that have grown around these personalities, just sort of, it's a bigger problem than we can deal with here. But like, it's that I see that as the biggest problem. I mean, why we just have sections of the left for some reason? Not that there hasn't been, different sects of the left before, but we have sections of the left now that are so polarized, just as we're polarized on a national level, that we can't get anywhere. We can't organize. And then you see something happen like Black Lives or defund the police pops up in the summer. Everyone wants to do something, and then because we're so unorganized and so divided between our media spaces, we have something where like hundreds of different organizations pop up in a region that's 50 miles wide, 50 by 50 miles, with not even 100,000 people in it. That's the problem for the left. I mean, where's the cohesive organization? Where's the strategizing? Where's the sitting down, coming together and saying, we want Medicare for all? How are we going to get it? Like, we're here, we're at the table. So let's have the conversation. How are we going to get Medicare for all? Let's like just tweeting it. I mean, I'm frustrated with leftist politicians too. Like, I get the frustration of force your vote. Mm-hmm. You're seeing these politicians tweet Medicare for all every day or every week, and it's like, we need Medicare for all now. We need Medicare for all now.
And then it gets, I do understand the frustration of like, okay, yeah, but why aren't you pushing it in in Congress?
I mean, they are, but it's just they have to be open with. I think the problem that leftist politicians have is they're not being public. I don't know. I could be wrong with this, but I don't think they're being public enough with the strategizing around Medicare for all. It should be a nationwide effort that. It should be a mass movement of people that, Medicare for all is the driving factor behind it. People need healthcare. That's, I think, the main priority of so many people. That should be the driving message. But behind that should be the leftist agenda, and that should be the mass movement of people. A poor people's campaign to honor, Martin Luther King. A poor people's campaign, finally, that could be started and sparked by politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who have such influence. That they could make this a moment in history. We could have a decade in a week of history, and it just starts with people who have that much influence sparking that change.
Totally. And the other thing I would say too is like, to the people on the left, like M4A folks, like, look, like, keep your fucking powder dry. Like, that's what I have to say about that. Is like, look, like, okay. My attitude on force the vote a week ago? No, don't do that. That's stupid. That's super dumb. Now?
Force the vote.
Absolutely go for it. But again, just because I think now that we have, like, now that everything's blue in DC, that doesn't mean that I think it takes first priority. Right now, I want to see another round of stimulus go out.
I'd like to see some PPP or PPE.
Yeah, like let's get that actual like Corona response done first. I'm totally down with that. I'd like to see us maybe deal with force the vote in like late February, early March, I think that's a great time to do it. I think, you know, anytime while Trump was there, anytime while Mitch McConnell was Senate Majority Leader, like, forget it. There's no point. Just like, it's absolutely stupid. It's just for show. So I never saw the point in that. I do, however, see a point in going for it now that there's like actually like it could pass, and then it serves us a lot more good to know, you know, have those direct votes, because then we really can get people who have gotten more accustomed to like, yeah, I got to call my senator, I got to call my representative, I got to harangue them and leave them messages and yada yada, something that we all got a lot more used to during the past 4 years of Trump. And people that woke up and started doing that a lot more, it's like, okay, yeah, just don't forget to keep doing that, but we can actually get what we want now. So that's definitely a big part of that whole thing, is just remember to like, it's weird because I'm like, in a sense, arguing for incrementalism, but it's like, it's only a slight bit. It's like, and I am only an incrementalist in that I want to be realistic about what can and cannot be done. I'm not like the second it's, you know, it hits the maximum, I'm not going to tolerate anything less. That's just how I view it. So, you know, I think like, yeah, sure, you always want to make the biggest move that as you can at any given moment, but also know what the biggest move you can make at any given moment is, and don't sit there and complain and crap all over people who literally understand the dynamic of the situation and are trying to work with what they've got. You know, I think it's like the amount that I see them attacking AOC or the squad or whatever, it's just like, you're talking about 4 representatives. Like, what the hell?
I mean, people really need to get off social media as well. Like, if we're going to organize the left, people need to, well, you know, get off social media. Like, social media can be used as a pretty, like, if you use it as a tool to communicate between one another and don't get obsessed with it, I think it could be a good thing. But people generally need to get off social media, not only because it's preventing you from realizing how bad things are around you when you're, you know, staring at the phone 24/7 and you're seeing all these things. It prevents you from looking up and seeing how bad things actually get. But you're also, it hinders our ability to organize together. You know, everyone's focused on it's the new thing. You know, it's the new TV. It's the new whatever distraction they put out to make sure that we don't come together and organize as working people. If we can just put down the phone for a little bit, come to that table and say, well, okay, we are the American left. We have some goals. How do we achieve those goals, knowing that there are people in both parties that oppose what we're talking about because it's not in the corporate interest?
Right.
How do we ask that bare bones question?
That's it.
Just realize that, yeah, it's it.
So, yeah, I mean,
we're dying.
Yeah, we got to deal with it. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap it for right now. We'll be back. Like I said, you know, we're going to do our best here on this channel to not be egomaniacal leftist assholes, and
but also not too cynical.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we'll be keeping it going, folks. But at any rate, hey, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back. And yeah, y'all take care. It's been real chill. So, peace out.
Where did my phone go? It's okay.